Okay. Hello, we are Bill Dietrich, Mike Limauro, and John Bailey, the authors of The Practice of Letting Go, which is our workbook. And if I can quickly share it here. There, does that show up on the screen?
Yes.
There's our book. And there it is. Yeah. Anyway, that's available at our website, thepracticeoflettinggo.com, and also at Amazon. Our topic today, and this is our fourth podcast, is letting go of importance. And we'll get into the details in that as we go. So let's just get started right away. Who wants to start? What are your thoughts on the topic?
Let me start it this way, because this is the first thing that popped into my head when I heard about the topic, which I think is a great topic. And I think that we can all relate to this, right? But I personally know people who have been holding a grudge against each other for so long that they can't even remember what they're mad about. They can't even remember what the source of the grudge was. And yet, obviously, at some point in time, it was very important to each of them, but not so important that they can remember it years later. All they remember is that they have a grudge against this person. And I find that fascinating. And I think it's often stems from this idea of the importance of being right over the importance of the relationship itself.
Good points.
I teach not a methodology, a thinking format to young couples that are considering being married. And those are the two axes. If you look at a horizontal axis from 0 to whatever, that's the importance of the issue. The vertical is from 0 to whatever, the importance of the relationship. And I maneuver between those, that if I'm in a discussion with my wife and the issue is not important to me, it can be very important to her. So the relationship is of great importance to me. I'll just acquiesce and say, that's fine. We'll go that direction. We'll do that. If it's something that's very important to me and very important to her, but we are so strong on the issue that we're going for a win, then we will sacrifice the relationship to win the issue. And that's where it really gets tense. The ideal situation is to always move in the direction of importance of issue and importance of relationship that leads to resolution. Let's resolve it. Let's figure out what we can do. Husbands are notorious for walking away. Well, that's when you don't care about the issue and you don't care about the relationship. So there's different directions you can go. And there are times when any one of those could be the right direction. Depends on the situation. But the importance, what I look at is who's defining it? Who's defining something as important? Um, I know people who would agree with me that it's important to save towards retirement. And I'd see them living a lifestyle that says just the opposite. And so is it just a cerebral sort of acknowledgement of importance, or is it a heartfelt importance? That's kind of where I started in this whole thinking about it, was in that whole definition of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with, valuing some things over others, saying that this is more important than that. I think that this is natural. I think the trouble that we can cause for ourselves and others is when we impose our preferences about what's important on others.
Agreed.
Yeah, sure.
And then I also looked at it from the sense of whether someone's important or not important. I go back to my biblical teaching there because Paul made it very clear in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, that we are all part of the body and each belongs to the other, and no part can say that they have no need for another, that all are equally important. And speaking societally, wouldn't that be a remarkable world if we could recognize that, yeah, a doctor may be important, but I really appreciate my waste disposal man that picks up my trash. On that day,
Yeah.
he's really important. So, need, circumstance, situation can always affect importance. And so I'd rather help people to feel important from within, know that they are, in my opinion, everyone's a child of the Creator, a child of God. That is important. And um, and that you don't look for some external affirmation of importance. If I might just linger a little bit here, I just recently did a graveside service for an indigent man. He had been held for a year. The medical examiner's office had tried to discover his identity, tried to find family. He was an immigrant. We suspect everyone denied him because they didn't want any connection with him. Potentially, he died of drugs, um, was found in a hotel room. But the medical examiner came out and the county clerk came out because she had taken interest in this whole case. And my thoughts around it was, here's a man that may truly only be known to God. And yet he was a human being that deserves a respectful committal. He deserves attention. And uh, I may never have the opportunity to ever know the man, but uh, I gave him the utmost respect, the same as I would if I was burying somebody of royalty. They Humans are humans, and importance was placed on them when they were created. My
I like
opinion.
that. I like that, John. That's sweet. And I wanna piggyback off of that because I do think what you started with is this idea of how do you determine what's important, right? And so to me, if I don't have values, goals, a purpose, how do I decide what's important? I mean, that's the way I look at it. I know a lot of people that don't think that way. They're just kind of going with the flow of life, and that can be beautiful too. That's what's important, right? But for
Yeah.
me, I need to understand the filter through which I'm looking at life. And when you said, that that it's important to treat every human with respect because we're all children of God, that demonstrates your values and what's important to you. But without that, I think a lot of people struggle with determining what's truly important in their lives.
Yeah. I have an organization I've worked with many years and has over 700 people, and everyone is on a first name basis. Doesn't matter what your title is. And I like that. And the idea there is that you have a role, but you are not your role. Whether you're the top person in your department or head of a division, that's your role. Other than that, you're a human being. And you have a set of skills which plays into your role. And so no one, even though many people have PhDs, no one's called doctor this or doctor that. It's all just first name. And so what's important is that people play out their roles and accomplish the mission of the organization. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. I'm trying to remember the kind of workplace sociologist. I can't remember his name. Maybe it'll pop into my brain. But he always went into a place and he called them artifacts. He would size up the place by the artifacts that he saw.
Mm-hmm.
If he saw a hallway with doors and private offices and a big corner office, that told him structurally how this organization kind of functions. If you go into something like maybe the new Delta GM plant, where the plant manager sits in a cubicle out on the floor and you've got people scattered everywhere, then you think, okay, these artifacts say communication happens a little differently here, because importance becomes rather relative. And so I think it's interesting how we, even as a group, will afford importance to someone. And um, and I'm not sure that that works. I guess all the time, because I've seen people take that and become incredibly self-important, and at that moment they start to become condescending, argumentative, sometimes disrespectful. Um, you never wanted to give someone positional based authority and have them think of it as something more important than anybody else, because it can backfire on you really bad.
Sure. Yes.
Well, I think that exists outside of, companies, formal institutional organizations. I think it's true in families, right? I know
Mhm.
a lot of parents who think that because they are the mother or the father, that becomes the most important aspect in the relationship with their child. Why should I listen to you? Because I'm your father, because I'm your mother. That's why, right?
Mhm.
Of course, that grows old. As the kids grow older, you need to earn their respect as young adults. So people
That's
place too much importance on positional authority, not just in companies, but in other structures too.
True. I think people who do that, people in leadership positions who consider themselves to be very important, uh, are missing out on the kind of power they could have. And the way I look at it is you're either focused on image or presence. And so if you think you're important, then you have to keep up that image. And if someone challenges your importance, then you have to defend it or find some way to attack the other person, so that no one pays attention to what they're saying. Where if you are not focused on image, but you're just there, instead of focused on being the great leader, you just lead. You just do what makes sense. Then you have this presence, which causes people to respect you and I think care about you, because you're for real. There's no image being projected out there. You're just Mike or you're just John,
Mm-hmm.
and so people can trust you then. And that's what the people whose, well, the word is ego, of course, whose ego gets in the way of their leadership. That's the disadvantage they have, is they don't get the kind of respect they could get if they would just be present and be real.
Yeah, I've seen that play out, and there have been books written. I think of Jim Collins, Good to Great. For
Yeah,
example, humble leaders are effective leaders. And you said that by how they carry themselves, the people care about them. Well, I think it's because the leader demonstrates that they care for the people,
sure.
right? It's that humility that says that we're in this together, and I want to support our collective success.
I've done some recent studying on the difference between the true self and the false self,
Oh,
and how, and you spoke of presence and image. And when I think of image, I think of trying to construct some false self that I have to work ardently at maintaining and enhancing. I have to not let anything tarnish that false self because I'm trying to convey that to everybody. Where if we, and so I think the sense of importance gets caught up in that. And well, if I'm important, I got to act important, however I define that. Where if I'm just being my true self, the person that God created, there doesn't, the integrity of that is tremendously effective and influential. And I think leadership, John Maxwell says, boils down to basically influencing. And I think when you're your true self, I can really influence people in the gifted ways of however that might be in whatever role I am in.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you. And this also spills over into just relationships. If you feel you have to be someone else to maintain a relationship or for someone to like you, that's a lot of work. It produces a lot of anxiety, and you create this inner conflict. There's the image versus the real self are always in a battle with each other. There's something going on inside of you that says this isn't right, but you feel like you have to do it to keep a job, to keep a relationship, to be liked by someone, whatever it may be.
Yeah, very much so. That's a ton of work, and it's difficult when that falls apart,
Yeah.
and it does, because it's not made out of good material.
Mhm.
Well, and what came up in listening to you is this idea of transparency, right? We tend to have armor, right, to protect ourselves when we engage with others. And so we have to decide what's important. What's more important, to be vulnerable, right? To take a risk and connecting deeply with another human being, or to protect my self-image.
Yeah. I think the
Yeah,
word
if you're
I'm
for
sorry.
real, there's nothing to protect.
Mhm.
But if you have an image, then yeah, you have to protect that. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Well, the word that just keeps resonating with me as we speak through these various scenarios is the word value. What is something that I value? I'm going to place a certain degree of importance on it. Well, I'm really the only one that can determine that value of a given, if it be an object or a person, relationship, a career, whatever. What is its value to me? And I will correspond with a degree of importance that's conveyed in terms of commitment, involvement, engagement, uh, protection, whatever that might be. It'll take a variety of forms. The more important it is, the more I'm going to be protective of it and engaged with it. The less it is, I can forfeit it. It'll be okay. Not a big deal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But at no point is it controlling me if I keep the right perspective. If I consider something very important, it does not have control over me unless I give it that. And
That's true.
once I do that, then it's going to be hard to let go. But the letting go, I think, happens early on, not later.
So if we let go of the image and just be the self, we have to know who the self is.
Absolutely.
Have to be able to identify ourselves in some way. And like, who am I? Why am I here? To answer those kinds of questions. Do you think most people ask and answer those questions or not?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is on a couple of workshops I've conducted, I've asked the question without using a title, a role, responsibility, a relationship. That's all I can think of right at the moment. Tell me who you are. What are you? When you take that all away, when you take all of the uh, terms that we've been ascribed in our life, take those away, what's left? And I saw that really play out with a lot of my dad's work associates, that they were glass workers. If you talk to them about their life, they're going to tell you about their glass working. When they retired, they had no identity. They lost it.
Yeah.
And And I think people look for these identities in activities and things and relationships that can be gone in a heartbeat, and you're left with you. I'll share a quick story. I got to meet the 1964 Olympic gold medalist winner in the breaststroke in Tokyo. And forgive me, my brain's not working to recall names today. Fascinating fellow. I met him out in Utah. I was out there with a Covey experience. And he said, if you guys want to see the gold medal and you want to hear me tell the story, meet at the fireplace at this resort we were in. And he said, I'll tell you. So there was a handful of us went down there, and he shared the story. And in the story, he says, for all my life, I swam. I was always swimming. I would get up early and swim. I would go to school and I would come home and swim. I would swim and swim and compete, swim, compete, swim, compete. He said, even when I went to Tokyo, I barely qualified. I was in the outside lane, and my appendix had perforated. He was in such agony. He still went out and won the gold medal swimming in the outside lane, was pulled out of the water and immediately rushed to the hospital. But he
That's
said
quite
the
a
thing
story.
was, it's amazing. He said it's quite an achievement. He says, but after the Olympics, I stopped swimming. I tried farming. I think it was photography. I've tried everything. I could not find a new identity because he never knew who he was. And I thought that's one of the saddest stories I've ever heard.
Yeah.
To lose yourself in this activity of life that you don't know who you are when it's done. And I decided right then I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to define myself by my work or by anything external, simply by who God says I am, who He has revealed to me in myself. And I keep learning things about myself. My gosh, I was made by an infinite God. And even though I'm finite in my being, there's parts and corners I haven't explored yet. Feelings, sensation, experiences. There's things yet that I would still like to do because I think they'll reveal more to me. And I think that's wherein we assume with older people at times they're wise. Well, why are they wise? They've started figuring it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and figuring it out to me, and we said this before, and of course we write about this in our book, is to let go of these what I call limiting beliefs, let go of these concepts, these other identities, these labels that we have, and just start with this premise as I am, right?
Mhm.
Without an object to that sentence, it's just the subject. And it's foreign for most people to even contemplate that. But once I'm stripped away of those limiting beliefs, and it's an ongoing process, of course, of evolution, I am, it's more clear to me that I can do what you just suggested, John, which is to thy will be done, go with the flow of life that I was meant to live and discover it, right? Discover it. It's an act of
The
self-realization.
journey.
It's a journey of discovery. And you realize that less is more. And that we let go of more and more baggage as we make this journey until we're left with a sense of deeper purpose. Right? For me, I help people awaken to their highest potential. I can look at all of the things I've done in my life since I was very young, and there's always that thread at the center of all of that activity. And it's about waking up myself, and through my waking up, help others to awaken also.
Makes
Awesome.
sense. Yeah. I find that we attach importance to things and situations uh, because we feel that maybe that'll make us more important, or I'll prove my own importance if I have this, if I have this relationship, or if I have this amount of money, or if I have this position. And I found that by letting go of that, you're actually more likely to achieve those things that and situations that you want. Some 30 some years ago, I was in a situation where my life was in a situation where I said, I'm ready for a long-term relationship. I had been married and divorced. I had a couple other relationships, and I said, I want to be with, I don't want serial relationships. I want to be with one person. So I wrote out a vision for myself that this is the person that I want to be with. And I tried not to make it too strict in terms of physical characteristics and things like that. But I read my vision every day. It was around Christmas time when this happened. And I spent a good share of Christmas Day all by myself, and I was completely content. I didn't feel like I had to have someone to make Christmas okay. But I believe that the right person is going to show up at the right time. So I don't need to worry about anything. I'm fine as I am. And it wasn't long, of course, till I during doing a workshop, I met someone that I liked, and we went out once. We went out a second time, and I just laid it all out on the table. This is what I'm looking for. I feel like you and I have that potential. Basically, let me know what you think. And there were no have-tos. There was no pressure on her. She could do whatever she chose to do. I wasn't going to push. It's just if she says yes, that's great. And if she doesn't, then okay. I'm still going to create that somehow because I want someone to share my life with. And I didn't say those things, of course, but I just had that feeling inside of me that however this turns out is fine. But by the way, I really like you, and so think about it. And it did not take long. And she said, yeah, I think I'd like to give this a try. And so we've been married for 30 years, 31 years now this summer.
Oh,
Peggy and I
congrats.
have been together, but that's how we started off. And it turns out that she had also created the vision for a relationship that she wanted.
Mm.
And actually, we had each done it in a workshop setting, and it was the same person who facilitated the workshop, but it was in different locations.
Wow.
Interesting.
Coincidence? I think
I
not.
don't believe in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it really showed me that you don't need to hold on tight. That you just you can certainly want things, desire things, but then just let go and realize that you're okay as you are, whether what you think you want comes to you or not.
That really borders on the intention experiment. I don't know if you've ever read any of that.
But I understand intention, and I
Very
certainly
powerful.
agree that intention is much more powerful than wanting or desire.
Yes. Yes. I mean,
Good
it goes
stuff.
on the belief it kind of, and maybe Mike can speak to this better, but I look at it that every living organism emits energy,
Sure.
emits, even electromagnetic energy. And my intentions can travel at the speed of light wherever I may direct them. Now, I'm not saying that I can manipulate all things and
Right.
know God, but I think we talk about our health a lot and the intention of being well and thinking in terms of being well. That has to be very intentional. When I love my family, it's very intentional. So that energy is expended towards them, and hopefully they are blessed and benefited by that. But I think even outside of the realm of, here, I think you and Peggy were emitting some intention that I think God divinely brought together and connected.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool how I love those kinds of stories anyway. I'm a hopeless romantic,
Oh
but,
yeah.
but I really think that we underestimate and I think bringing it back to importance, we can waste a lot of energy if we don't let go of the importance,
Yeah.
and we won't know peace.
Yeah. And it's because of that energy realization that what is most important to me, and you've heard me say this before, is elevating the frequency with which my consciousness vibrates. Now, you don't hear those words roll off people's tongues very often, right? But it's about, we all know when our energy is uplifted versus being cast downward. And we can learn to control the direction of that energy. And when I elevate it to these higher frequencies, I find that I can connect more deeply with others, and that I can do so without judging or resisting or attaching. You mentioned attachments early, Bill. And when I can let go of my egoic desires, my personal preferences that I used to think of as all important, I'm able to get into that flow of life and just love what is here and now.
And I think what's interesting in that vein of thought is that I don't have to create any self-importance. If I'm living that way, you find people drawn to you.
Yeah,
They will come to you, and all of a sudden, they may place their relationship with you as something important to them because it has had some positive impact on them. I think that's
true.
healthy importance.
So we should be wrapping up in the next couple of minutes. So, Mike, you got some things you want to add before we close out here?
I don't think so. I think we covered a lot of ground.
We
Yeah,
did.
I
John, you
agree.
got something else?
No, not really. I think we hit a lot of points in a very short period of time.
Okay.
So hope
Well,
people enjoy the drink out of the fire hose.
well, then in summary, we talked about about letting go of importance, that we don't really need to create an image of importance. We just need to be ourselves, and to trust in that. And I think the word we didn't use that is important is self-love. Is to have an enough self-love that you don't feel the need to build an image so that people will like you or accept you. And then self-love, of course, comes from self-acceptance, accepting yourself as you are, including the flaws, to just say, this is who I am. That's not to make excuses for flaws, but to accept, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. Then what do I want to do? Where do I want to go? And then to make choices. And I would add to that it's important to move beyond wanting and desiring and wishing, and to just choose. What do you want? And to choose it. And that's an intention, and that's very powerful. When I first went into business, I said to somebody, yeah, I'm trying to start a business. And the guy said, you're trying to start a business? Are you starting one or aren't you? So that cured me of the word try right away. No, I'm
That's good.
choosing to start a business. I'm doing it right now.
That's
Yeah,
good.
that's wisdom from Yoda.
That's
Right?
right.
Do or do not ever try.
That's right. All right. Any final words?
I'm good. I hope you both enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Again, we are William Frank Diedrich, Mike Limauro, and John Bailey. We are the authors of The Practice of Letting Go. It's a wonderful workbook, very helpful. It's on Amazon, and it's also at our website, thepracticeoflettinggo.com. We look forward to seeing you again at our next podcast.